Are you ready for this? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat?
Y'all ready for
That's a
this?
different
No,
song.
not that. Okay.
That's what I was saying is another one bites the dust.
Doom, doom, doom.
There we go.
And
Oh,
welcome to FlyBy episode 9. I am Erick Webb, social media marketer, joined by Cayla, social media marketer, and Jirka, who does all kinds of things here at AOPA. He wears many hats. Most of them are black with nothing on them.
But you got that little button up there. That's got to rub against your headset, Yurka.
nope, that's a misnomer. Most of the new headsets have a gap.
Well, really?
Yeah, so I buy these in bulk because black
Wow.
unmarked hats are my jam.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Okay, good to
Bose
know.
even has a little hinge gap right there at the top, so that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So, big topics of the moment: Trent Palmer, Trevor Jacob, and a Red Bull plane swap. A whole lot going on. So, two of them in particular, pretty much anybody can look at it and say, that probably wasn't the smartest idea you've ever had. So, we know Red Bull, they asked for a waiver from the FAA and they were denied, and they did the stunt anyway, and a 182 went down in the desert. So, FAA is very interested in everything that happened there. And then we had Trevor Jacob. Yeah, I'm sure you guys know all about this. Jumped out of an airplane, claimed it was an emergency, and the FAA says, no, that wasn't an emergency. You had 2 fire extinguishers tucked up under your pant legs and GoPros and parachutes, and you didn't even try to restart your engine, et cetera, et cetera. What do you guys have to say about that?
I didn't know about the fire extinguishers.
Really?
Yeah, he had it. I just saw it a couple of days ago. It was like tucked in his pant leg,
Mm-hmm.
like it was ready to go. I think actually Trent pointed out that he had his door cracked open before the engine even stopped. Like lots of, I mean, are we oversimplifying if we call him an absolute idiot?
I think that might be warranted, definitely warranted in this situation. When you're jumping out of the airplane and you have a selfie stick in your hand, I mean, come on, really?
Yeah. Last thing I'm going to be thinking about when I have an engine failure is let me grab my selfie stick before I parachute out of this airplane.
Yeah. Not to mention he had every single angle covered. I mean, it's either pure luck or he really,
It was planned.
that was very planned.
Yeah. So yeah, if you
In the
watch,
end, he got in more. His license is gone, and I don't think the trouble is over for him. Full stop. Right?
that's pretty much it. The FAA revoked his license right away. They said, no, this dude, you've created some issues here. You could have caused a lot of damage. There was a significant problem with your whole thought process on this. And if you watch his own video and you pause the frame, you can see when he's jumping out of the plane and his legs kick up, you can see 2 fire extinguishers tucked under his pant legs. So
Wow.
yeah, unfortunately, that's the one downside to videoing everything you do when you're flying is when you do something that's questionable. There's all the evidence right there. There's no
Yeah.
denying it. And then we've got Trent Palmer, who we've gotten a lot of buzz on that, even more than Trevor Jacob, believe it or not. People are asking, hey, is AOPA involved? Is AOPA helping? And the answer is, yeah, we have been for, a year and a half, almost 2 years. Trent is a Pilot Protection Services member and the legal services plan, so he's had access to our panel attorneys for legal counsel, and we're not done. He's appealing everything that's been decided so far. For those who aren't familiar, he was visiting a buddy of his who had a remote control airfield on his property, and a big piece of property. I think he said it was about 10 acres on his YouTube video. Did a low pass to assess the landing spot to see if it was going to be doable. And I think in his own video, he said, I couldn't really make out where the strip was, and I decided, I can't find it right away. I'm not going to stick around and keep buzzing around here. So I've decided this is not a safe place to land. I can't find the airfield, and I'm going to keep going. And the FAA said, well, since you decided not to land, that means you didn't have the intent to land, and therefore you were within 500 feet of person's property, etc. and violated a series of regulations, and we're going to suspend you. So he's currently appealing that right now. It's a 60-day suspension. He's appealing that, so he's able to continue flying, and we expect that to go on for another 2 years. But I mean, what do you guys think? There's a lot of potential safety implications with this.
Well, safety, and at this point, it's not even just about Trent, right? And if it was, I think if it was about a 60-day suspension for essentially a hobbyist pilot, or a 60-day, is it suspension?
I believe
right?
it is a suspension, yeah.
Not a big deal. Well, theoretically, not a big deal,
Right.
right? But if we are redefining what an airport is based on if you touch the ground or not, right? Or if it has a windsock or if it has lights,
Yeah.
now that's where it starts impacting everybody, right? It starts impacting our right to land on grass strips, our right to land in the back country, our freedom to go camping with our airplanes. And all those things are impacted by those definitions stated in that case. And I think that's where, granted, yes, we have Trent's back, but I think we have to pay more attention because this could blow back on all of us.
Yeah, 100%. Cayla, you do a lot of tail dragger kind of backcountry-ish flying. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, my major concern as someone who particularly likes to fly in the evenings and later in the day, that's when all the deer start coming out down here in Georgia. And one of the things that I do if I'm going to an airport that's surrounded heavily by trees or wooded areas, most times before I land, especially around dusk, I will go and make a pass to look to make sure there's nothing on the runway. So this really, if this stands, if the FAA says, Trent, you were in the wrong completely here, this is going to change the game for every single one of us in aviation. Go arounds. I mean, how do you teach a go around without you? It goes against so many of the basic principles that we're taught in flight training. So this is a massive problem for not just backcountry pilots, but pilots in general.
Yeah, 100%. And how do you do a runway inspection or a landing zone inspection if it's backcountry? If you're 500 feet or above, you can't see anything down there. I took a Super Cub over to a grass strip not far from here in Frederick, and I texted the owner, hey, is everything cool with the field, in good condition, it's not too wet, you don't have anything going on? He said, yeah, come land, just watch out, there's some geese about mid-field hanging around the pond. I did a low pass, I scared the geese off. If I had decided I'm going to land, I would have hit the geese in somebody else's airplane, and that would have been a mess. I mean, literally and figuratively speaking, it would have just been horrible. And we're definitely very concerned with what the FAA's setting here. If it becomes case law, it's going to set a terrible, dangerous precedent that has ramifications all across the general aviation industry.
And in the spirit of the government pace, we're talking about it now. Everybody's talking about it now. Trent appealed the decision, and once it makes it through the news cycle, nobody's going to talk about it for another 2 years, and then it'll be back, right?
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right. Speaking of backcountry and out in the middle of nowhere, woods, creatures that live in potentially wooded backcountry areas.
Are we about to have a Sasquatch as
tigers? I don't like a tiger. You ever heard of one of those? I guess by the time this video comes out, today's May 9th, depending on how quickly I get to it, this might come out right before the sweeps ends, which ends on May 20th. So sadly, we're going to be getting rid of the tiger. Cayla, you had a chance to fly in it.
Yeah, I did, and I think I got about 2 hours in it. How many hours do you have in that, Eric? That tiger's kind of been your passion project here for the last, what has it been, year now?
Yeah, well, the sweepstakes is every year and a half, so Colin brought me into the mix. Well, let me see if I can find how many hours I've got in it. It's at least 30, maybe 40 hours.
That's
Discuss
sweet.
amongst yourselves. You've seen the tiger and what you think of it. I'll keep searching.
Yeah, no, the Tiger's awesome. One of my favorite things is the paint scheme. I truly believe that this is my favorite AOPA sweepstakes scheme. The blue, the orange, they just work so well together. And especially, I don't know if it's just me thinking this because I'm down here in the South and I've got Clemson University just to the north and I've got Auburn University just to the southwest. But it's the same. It's the same colors for the Auburn Tigers. I mean, it's a tiger. I hope somebody that has Auburn ties or Clemson ties wins this airplane. It's perfect. It sparkles when the sun hits it. It's gorgeous. The panel's also super cool, and it's a good flying airplane. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of comments at Sun and Fun, actually. People were saying, hey, this is the Tigers, right? And I was like, no, it's actually just a coincidence, but it is pretty accurate when you pointed that out. Yurko, have you had a chance to go fly in it yet?
You and I just talked about that.
Yeah.
I've flown a couple Tigers before. I've never flown one this clean, but they are great airplanes no matter what.
Yeah, for sure.
They're fun little things, and they do. You might not be going 200 knots, but it's actually a really nice traveling airplane.
100%.
And you know what? The best part about it, somebody's going to get it for free. And I would argue, we always, all of us pilots say, hey, I don't know, whatever airplane is your dream airplane, right? If I had that amount of money, I would buy it. That's not the case, right? If somebody writes you a check right now for $250,000, you're probably not going to buy a $250,000 airplane.
No, I would buy a cheap airplane and fix it up.
This gets one pilot right to it.
Absolutely.
They get the airplane that they wanted, and that's just it's going to be cool as hell. It always is.
Yeah.
When we do the reveal, the surprise, the Mark Baker coming around the corner with a set of keys to a guy or gal that had no idea.
Yeah, that's the best part.
Every one of these airplanes is beautiful. Has a great paint job. Thanks to a lot of our sponsors, has some awesome equipment. Every time.
Yep,
the best
100%.
part is when it gets handed over.
Yeah. So all of our contributors to the project are listed on aopa.org/sweep, so you can go check them out. If you see anything you like on the Tiger, go check them out, and they can hook you up. But Cayla, back to your question.
Including dual electronic ignition.
Yeah, that hasn't been
awesome.
installed yet, but we have that in hand. We're hoping, knock on wood, to have that installed before we give it away. but
that's huge, though. That's
yeah, it's incredible.
The fact that they're getting this thing STC'd.
Yeah, it already is. I mean, so we're in good shape. Cayla, back to your question. 34.5 hours in the Tiger. And
That's
I think
awesome.
the engine has 60 hours on it since overhaul. So that's pretty much all the flying we've done on it. So I guess out of everybody here at AOPA, I've got the most time in the Tiger. Oh, man. So I guess I'm the one that's going to miss it the most when it's given away. But the other cool thing, I know we did a quick peel the sticker and show off the N number at Sun and Fun, but it's actually, the paperwork has been processed and the tail number for that plane has actually been changed. It's 716 Echo Romeo now, which you see that and you're like, okay, whatever, 716 Echo Romeo. Is it an Embry-Riddle airplane? I don't get it. Write it down and use your imagination a little bit and see what that spells. And that is the tail number. So it's Nick Beatty on our web team. He's the director of the whole web team.
Awesome idea.
Yeah, it was really clever. And we got lucky that it had not been snatched up by another Tiger owner. So pretty cool tail number, I think. And then, speaking of backcountry, we've got another sweepstakes coming up soon that we're going to reveal at AirVenture. And I think the new airplane is being checked out at the moment, being evaluated by someone Cayla, a mechanic or AMP?
Yeah, I actually sent one of my friends over here at my local airport in Georgia who's a really great, he's a young AMP and he works for an airline here out of Atlanta, and sent him down there and he said it's a great bird. So we are in the process of acquiring the next sweepstakes airplane as we speak.
Awesome.
That's going to be fun.
I'm really excited about this one too.
And no more hints, Eric.
No hints. I'm just going to say, speaking of the backcountry, and that's all I'm going to say. That's enough. Come to AirVenture and you'll see it. We'll be there with it. And maybe I can fly this one 34 and a half hours too. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed on that one. And speaking of things being rebuilt and redone and new, AOPA Live this week is getting a reboot. So everybody knows we've been off air since Sun and Fun. Tom Haynes retired, and we had the last episode there with Nikki and Sierra. And there's been no AOPA Live this week since then. There's something in the works, right, Yurka?
Yeah, something. It's been super fun, and it's kind of cool that so many of the AOPA team are getting involved, from giving the studio and the where we record and the environment of where we create all these great news and stories and that kind of thing is going to change quite dramatically. I think to a lot better. But you know what? It's anybody's guess. I'm really curious to see everybody's response. But we're also bringing in some new faces in front of the camera, more AOPA folks getting out there and being part of the storytelling. I think it's going to be lots and lots of fun. And the cool thing is that I think all of the team is stoked to evolve this and to listen to pilots, get this tweaked, get this right. So we really not only reach as many pilots as possible, but we represent them well. From travel stories to reviews of airplanes to all the hard stuff being done on the hill, it's going to be really fun to tell the story in a new way. Although I know that everybody misses Tom Haynes, which is why it's taken us a little while to make sure we fill the shoes well. But it's a really fun reset, and it's always fun to see the AOPA crew getting excited about something like this, because the outcome is always even better.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what our members think about the new format as well, and kind of get their feedback and see what if they like it or if they'd like to see something a little bit different as we tweak it and kind of figure things out. But it's got a new name too, is that right?
I heard somebody on this podcast came up with that new name.
Yeah. It was a suggestion. We had, 30, 40 suggestions, I think it was. And the decision, I kind of said, well, what if we just call it AOPA Pilot? We have AOPA Pilot magazine. It's a well-recognized brand. Just kind of bring that into the fold.
I might have to steal your thunder. I think that
Go ahead.
There's been a lot of sources of that idea, and may or may not be final. But you don't get all the credit for that one, my friend.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just call it AOPA Pilot the show. We have AOPA Pilot the magazine, AOPA Pilot the show. I don't know. That's still in development and probably not 100% final at this point. But yeah, we're excited to see how that turns out and what comes from that. Cayla, you did something pretty cool last week, something really unique and probably even for you anyway, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so last weekend we drove from San Antonio. We had to drive, unfortunately. I say drove, and I was like, oh, that's such a bummer. We drove from San Antonio, Texas, to Sweetwater, Texas, for the 80th and probably the final Women Airforce Service Pilots reunion. The WASP played such a big part in World War II. I actually read the other day that they were responsible for over half of the aircraft ferries throughout World War II.
Absolutely.
From 1942 to 1944. Just an incredible feat. I mean, everything from P-51s to P-38s to T-6s to bombers. I mean, they were a huge part of our history, and it was so cool to be able to honor them. There was only one WASP there. She was 100 years old. She had just celebrated her 100th birthday. She looked great. She was super excited to be there. And I can't believe it's always been on my bucket list to get to Sweetwater. You know, being an aviatrix and always hearing about Sweetwater and actually getting to be there was super special, especially for this occasion. And they had about 30 airplanes fly in. It was a fly-in as well as a museum visit and all that good stuff. So it was a great day.
And did you write a piece on that or a story?
Jill actually wrote the
Jill
piece on
Tallman
it.
did.
Yep. So Jill was there, me, Jill, and Dave Toulis, one of our photographers.
Very cool. I wish I could have been there. That would have been really neat to see.
It was awesome.
That's super cool.
Well, I'll try to remember to put a link to that down below as well. We'll see how my brain does. Once you hit 40, things start happening and changing, and you just don't keep up as well as you used to.
You're aging ungracefully, man.
Yeah, Yurka doesn't know anything about that. He hasn't hit 40 yet.
Mentally, I'm still 16.
There you go. That's what I was leaning towards. You just got back from Germany. You went to Aero Friedrichshafen, right?
Wow. How much? Okay. Honestly, how many times did you practice that?
That was it.
Oh.
That
Well, I
would
mean, I
take
said
me
it.
like 10 times.
I said it to you before we got on, and I think you said I had phlegm in my throat or something like that.
Oh yeah, the Dutch accent
Yeah.
to it. Yeah, that's right. No, that show is awesome. It it was on a hiatus really throughout the entire COVID period. So this was after 3 years, the first one. Really, essentially 3 years. But it was super awesome. It's a good reminder for all the pilots in the U.S. that U.S. is a big country, so you can't blame everyone to be sort of, hey, we're about North American or American flying. But we are also sort of fed this piece of information that maybe is not 100% accurate, that GA has been destroyed everywhere else. Now, it's been bureaucratized more probably outside the U.S., but it hasn't gone away. The desire to fly, the hunger to fly, the love of flying still exists all over the world. It just looks a little bit different sometimes.
Yeah. So, what are
And
some of the innovative things you saw while you were there?
well, like, Europe has a really much more freedom in the sort of light sport LSA SLSA category. They are not restricted by some arbitrary speed number. They're not restricted on constant speed props, for example. They can do retractable gear. So
Wow.
you have airplanes there running at turbocharged rotax going 180 miles an hour, 180 knots.
Wow.
Whoa.
Um, and they're beautifully built, really nice airplanes. You can buy them here in the U.S. now, but mostly they end up being experimental. So a lot of that is happening at a rapid pace from materials, being built out of really cool carbon fiber shells so they stay light, all that fun stuff. The other cool stuff is that, because of remote controlled airplanes, like big remote controlled airplanes, and now jetpacks, the jet
Yeah.
bang.
Yeah. Those are
And
cool.
if you've seen the British Navy doing the, ship to ship jetpack thing.
I want to get my hands on one.
Yeah, so those same turbines or similar turbines are being used now in nose of those two-seat LSAs.
Oh
They
wow.
put out 140, 150 horsepower, which is perfect. It's almost exactly the same as that Rotax, but it's much more reliable, and it'll chew pretty much any jungle juice you can pump out of the ground, right? Probably sludge they'll probably burn through sludge if you let it.
Yeah.
So it's super cool, and JMB, Bristol, who actually is quite successful here in the U.S., and others have prototypes out there that I'm pretty sure they're going to start selling. Now, here in the U.S., even more so, that's going to be an experimental thing. But if anything, it's one way to get around the whole LOLED issue. LOLED when it comes to price and all the other issues that we're running
Right.
into LOLED now. Otherwise, the long run stuff was really cool to see too. Hydrogen is back with a vengeance.
Yeah. What'd you see with that?
It's what is it? 3 years ago when we were out there, it was all about electric, right? Siemens was bolting these super cool motors in the nose of extras, and Siemens is now out of the business. Rolls-Royce took it over, and they're now doing some of the hybrid and electric propulsion. Pipistrel, of course, is running electric. Diamond has a great electric, but a lot of innovators, a lot of startups that are supported by science grants and that kind of thing in Europe now are going to hydrogen, partly because we all know batteries are heavy as hell.
Yep.
So you can put out a trainer with an hour and a half worth of flying, which is more than enough for training. But if you want to go anywhere, just batteries are not there yet.
No.
And there's some really cool ideas around how to store hydrogen in the airplane, like inside essentially a strut tube. A tube that serves as a strut, but also holds 100 gallons of pressurized hydrogen. Cool stuff like that. Of course, that one is a long range, right? Because that's such a new tech. To get that in any way certified is going to take a minute or two. So that's the only downside. But electrics, they're here, and at least for training, they're going to be awesome. Diamond, Pipistrel, those guys, they can turn that airplane by the time you brief with your instructor and get it recharged and be back out flying.
Wow, that's cool.
That's really cool.
And you and I both know, both of you guys and I know that hour and a half long lesson is more than enough.
Yes.
Yeah, it depends on what you're flying, I guess. How much fun you're having, right?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, your private lessons,
Yeah.
an hour and a half is more.
Saturation is real.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. It's
And,
been a while since I was in training.
and I'll tell you, besides tech, a quick tooting of our own horn here.
Toot toot.
We exactly. The, the the show is in Germany, but who shows up is a few of us are from the U.S. and then AOPA Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, Austria, and a lot of the countries that are nearby.
Yeah.
And all of them, some of them are volunteer only. Germany has only a few staff. It really depends on the size, how many pilots are in that country. But it's cool to see that they still jump into the trenches as soon as something happens. And we saw it happen the first day of Aero, which was the quietest day of the show. And departing the airport, there was probably 50 airplanes wanted to leave. And somebody somewhere in the airport security government office decided that, we need to read the rules this way, which means that every departing aircraft needs to have a police escort to the airplane. Like the pilot has to have escort to the airplane. That escort has to wait until you depart, but they can come back and escort the next pilot.
Wow.
So you had 50 pilots in essentially a holding pen waiting for 2.5, 3 hours, one by one to be able to leave. They were missing their departure slots because there were departure slots. Oh, a huge mess.
Wow.
And that was the first quiet day of the show as it was ramping up for the rest of the week. So it was cool to see Michael Erb from AOPA Germany and their lawyer just go after it. And they spent that afternoon and that night with EASA, who is essentially the European FAA, and the local authorities of the airport, and they cleared it up and they figured out an alternate process. In the meantime, of course, day one, the pilots that were leaving going to take some convincing for them to ever come back to Aero because it's probably quite the ordeal sitting there.
Yeah.
But it was awesome to see that AOPA Germany went to war and got it cleared up. So it was awesome to see.
That's cool.
You know what? These AOPA is in some 80-some different countries, and some of them are very small organizations. But hey, when pilots need, they're out there. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, very cool. One thing that stands out for me from the pictures and videos you sent, you did kind of a 2.5 minute, 3 minute walkthrough video and just kind of showing off the various things that we've got on our Facebook page. Was the airplane at the end that you said had your name on it or something like that?
Yeah. So tail numbers are one way to get creative. You were talking about Tiger.
Yep.
This particular one was I-DIOT.
I thought you said that was someone else's name that we were referencing earlier in the podcast. It was
there you go.
Jacob.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yikes.
On that note.
Yeah, so I thought it was hilarious, and that I would fly with that tail number just for the hell of it.
I would totally do that. I would totally do it. And if I bounce the landing or something, which I've done from time to time, as we all have, I could just say, well, you see the tail number. That's me. That's my excuse.
For anyone that's looking to win that Tiger, don't worry, we will inspect the landing gear after Eric.
Oh, no, I've never slammed that one down. This one, I just gently kiss the pavement, or in the case of Peach State Aerodrome, kiss the turf.
You did it very well.
The wheel pants are still well intact, not scratched or anything else, at least as far as I know. Have you all done any flying recently or planning to go or anything like that?
This week I'll get back in the air after about 3 weeks of not being in the air. So I'm looking forward to that.
Carbon Cub?
Carbon Cub.
Nice. How about you, Jurga?
I got to get back into the my buddy's Zenith that's been sitting for last month. I got to clean it up, and you know what? Those airplanes are utilitarian, not the prettiest thing in the world, but ever since I've been flying it, starting last November or something, it's one of my favorites when it comes to just bouncing in and out of little patches of grass.
That sounds fun.
Because it's like a little Jeep. It's not pretty, but it does the job damn well.
Nice. I'm not doing anything too fancy. I'm supposed to be flying the Tiger a little bit more with some staff, kind of give them a chance to check it out before we give it away. Flying the Tiger. You can call me the Flying Tiger. Not the same as in China.
You don't get to give yourself nicknames.
No. No, let's not do that. I heard Photo Bomber was in the running for my new call sign after dropping the phone out of the window of the Super Cub. So that's
a pretty good one. I like that.
Yeah, that's what Richard McSpadden told me the other day. Well, hopefully that one doesn't stick. It's still painful memory. And I'm also doing some formation training with Dave Hirschman, Mike Felucci, and Colin Stagnito. So the two, Mike and Dave, are kind of teaching me and Colin the basics of formation flying, and the goal is to get a couple more pilots trained on doing some air-to-air shoots for AOPA media. So that's
awesome.
That's been quite a challenging experience. Cayla, I think you've done a little bit of formation in your day. I don't know what you got as far as your formation Yurka, but it's a lot of fun.
It's intense.
But holy crap, it's intense and
it's exhausting.
Yes. You're talking about that hour and a half flight. It's like 0.8, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm ready for a neck break. And my brain hurts, and I've been tense this whole time because I've only done 3 flights, so it's still really new to me. But man, it's a heck of a lot of fun. Anyway, I think that about wraps it up for this episode of FlyBy, unless the two of you have anything you'd like to add. And I'm seeing some head shakes and confused looks, so that's it. Come see us the next time around on FlyBy. Later.
See ya.